That's the way we get back. Hello everyone, Ryan here, and it's time for a review of this new Jason Eady album, self-titled. Jason Eady is a country singer. I put out an album out a few years ago. I unfortunately missed it. I'm going to have to return to it now. I've listened to this one though because I'm very impressed with what I've heard. This album is the rootsy kind of country that I absolutely love. There's a lot of mainstream country that makes the radio in America that I just never entertain and I will never bother listening to. Thomas Rhett, Florida Georgia Line, Sam Hunt, but whenever I hear there's a more rootsy kind of taking it back to the traditional sounds of country, which are very underrated, I think, then I'm totally on board with it and I always give it a listen. Now, musically, this isn't exactly pushing the boundaries or really making a game-changing music in terms of what country music could be doing today. I mean, it's not really the kind of music that you'd hear from Sturgill Simpson, who is another country artist I absolutely love, but it is, in fact, the storytelling and the incredible songwriting on this album that has just lured me in. One major focus of this album is regret. There's a lot of songs on here that focus on what Jason Eady feels like he could have done better. It's very much just emotions straight on with this album. It's kind of just him speaking exactly how he feels about the things that he's done, and he isn't afraid to just admit straight away that he's done a lot of wrong things, like the track Not Too Loud, which is probably the most regretful song here if you look at it in terms of what he's singing about, as he's talking about his daughter and how he wished he'd done more for her, and now he kind of wants to be able to see her grow up and see the woman that she becomes. It's the most shocking track on the album, I think, because although there is a lot of this theme on the album of regret, this is the one where you kind of sit back and think, wow, this is really true here. He actually has, sort of not really seen his daughter grow up, and it's the one that you can't sympathize as much with, but the way he kind of sings, it's like, oh wow, that really just hits you. And when I mean sympathise, I guess if you look at it from the standpoint of, well, why haven't you been with your daughter this whole time? But then there are always other things that come along with it, and you don't exactly know why, and you can't judge someone just based off of that. But then there is a bit of context as well on this album that you could tie in with this. We have the song Why I Left Atlanta, which is obviously a song about him leaving the place Atlanta in America, and he talks about the reasons why, and he also mentions Georgia, which I think is kind of a clever take on the idea of, Atlanta, Georgia, but then it's kind of like him talking about a girl called Georgia, and obviously once again he's facing massive regret here because he wishes that he had not done it in some senses, and he wishes that he had stayed with this girl. And then a couple of tracks down the line we have Where I've Been, which is a follow-up to Why I Left Atlanta. And again, it's another emotional song. He's focusing on the breakdown of his relationship, and he does have this feeling of wanting to try again, and he mentions a few times as well that he would do anything to start again, even though the girl in question doesn't seem interested at this point, and she kind of has wondered why he's gone and where he's been going this whole time. So I do suppose from that knowledge that we've been given there that this love of his life could be the girl that he had a child with, and then on the track previously which I was talking about, that's where the daughter comes in question, because of course he's left this woman and he's wanting to get her back, but of course there could be a daughter involved, and for as long as he's been left Atlanta, then that could have been the time that his daughter has grown up and he hasn't been able to see her grow. Perhaps I am reaching a bit here with some of the ideas and the themes, but we don't really get many answers, and there isn't really the one big theme across the whole album. It just seems to be something that keeps cropping up, and it's kind of the way I've interpreted it in the end. But we do get Jason Eady wishing for that second chance once again on No Genie in This Bottle, where he wants to go back and do all those little things that he didn't do and become a better man. But the bottle that he's referring to, I'm assuming, is alcohol, because as he drinks the bottle, he knows there isn't a genie at the bottom of the bottle as it empties. And so there is no way that he can just make these wishes. you know, of course people know this deep down, like you can't just change the past, but there is that spark inside people that have massive regret that they just want to be able to go back and change the things that they've done wrong. It's another heartbreaking song here. And I must talk about the song that sets up this entire album's arc and theme. The first track, Barabbas, which is incredible. I absolutely love this song. This is probably one of the best I've heard all year. And it's an interesting story which I didn't know about, and I'm sure many people wouldn't know about. But it is the story of the man who was imprisoned alongside Jesus, but there was a choice that the people had to make, and who was going to be the one that was executed. And of course, it was Jesus, as we know the story goes. Jesus was put on the cross. But Barabbas was the man who was pardoned. He was let go and carried on his life. And this song focuses on Jason Eady kind of playing the Barabbas character, and he talks about the choices that Barabbas should make with this second chance he's been given in life, and even with the guilt hanging that, you know, oh, he survived, but his friend Jesus died, he kind of has to make the decision on where to go from here and how to live your life. And of course, Jason Eady's character talks about focusing on the best thing to do, and so freedom, being given the freedom, you should then make sure that you do the best with your life. And I feel like that's kind of what this album's essentially about, because even though Barabbas should have chose the best of his life, in this case, Jason Eady kind of hasn't really done that, and he's spent his life not really doing the things that he should have, and he's lived with a lot of regret, and now he kind of wishes he had that second chance. I might not be selling this album very well. I'm probably making it sound like this is filled with so much regret, because it is, and, you know, wishing for a second chance and wanting to do better, but I cannot recommend this album enough. I think it's absolutely amazing, but there are some brighter, shinier tracks that make things a little bit upbeat, like the second track on the album, Drive, also Waiting to Shine. Again, it's brighter, it's faster paced, it's a good track, that one. Also, I suppose Rain, although I don't really like the sound of that song as much as the others, but it's still a decent track. The track Black Jesus has a different tone to it as well. I interpret this song as Jason Eady meeting an African American man when he was very young, when he worked a different job, and perhaps this was during a time where racism was a bit more prevalent. These two men realize that they're very similar, they share music together. This man that he meets tells him that the only difference between them really is the fact that his Jesus is black and Jason's Jesus is white, but in essence there isn't any differences between them. However, they do lose contact in the end. I do wish that there would have been some kind of follow-up to this and we would have heard more a bit about the story, because it does sound really good, but I guess if they didn't stay in touch, then the story ends basically. As I've said, this album is filled with incredible storytelling and amazing songwriting and just well-produced country music, which is the kind of country music that I always gravitate towards. And I can't really say much else about it other than the fact that it's fantastic, and I pretty much love most of the songs on this album, maybe one or two that I'm not as into, but overall this is one of the best albums I've heard all year. And yeah, I think definitely you should listen to it. If you're not really into country music, definitely start with something like this, or even Casey Musgraves, Sturgill Simpson, something a bit more modern, and this is certainly worth your time as well. So yeah, thank you for listening, make sure you subscribe, and have a good day.